Hey there. All right, so we have the first week or weekend of Oaklawn Park in the books. Frost is making a presence. He might make another cameo here. But all right, we're going to cover, can you see him? See him move the screen? Hi, Frost. He's back. All right, so first 3 days out of the way. Maybe he'll hang out today and cover these races. Yesterday, there wasn't a whole lot to kind of touch on, but there were a couple races, races 5 and races 7, that I think are worth going into. And I think if we just kind of cut it into those 2 races, we can go through on a horse by horse. Let me get this angle just a little bit. Adjust this as well. You can see Frost a little bit more. Okay, we'll go through those races. It kind of started off the first race of the day. I thought we might have a speed bias. There wasn't a whole lot of change in running order. The horses went around the track with just sort of minimal change there. But after that race, and I'll kind of touch on that a little bit. As far as like a speed bias, it's a couple things. One, there wasn't a whole lot of change in running order. And secondly, when you're watching the horses, the visuals of those horses, they're actually, they're running, they're trying to improve position. So that just kind of shows that there's maybe something going on with the track as far as why those horses can't make up the ground that they need. And then the rest of the card, I think the track just kind of even out. There was is pretty on pace, played a big factor in there, just as far as where horses finishes, whether they were forwardly placed or coming from off the pace. We saw Ingrid Mason win another race. I think that's 3 wins and 4 starts. Maybe I think that one, I could be off. I didn't look this up. I probably should have done that at a time. She had 1 horse run in the Smarty Jones that was a little bit overmatched, but other than that, 3 wins to start off. So continuing that hot hand. Sadler runners are still running well. And then kind of the usual suspects. Larry Jones had a big win. Diodoro picked up a couple wins. Just sort of, barns to follow as we go forward. I think that's important. Same thing with jockeys. Haven't really seen a whole lot. Anybody like that's really, riding exceptionally well or winning sort of beyond their percentage. So we'll continue to follow that. What I talked about, Joe Talamo breaking horses slow. He did that with another horse on the card. One of them in the nightcap, the 9th race. I think he was on the 13. He broke that horse slow and then ended up recovering. He's on the 10. Ended up recovering that and getting that horse to win. Kind of a well-prepared horse, but change in scenery hasn't changed that tendency. All right. So, anyways, let's get into it. These 2 races that I wanted to cover. We'll start off with the 5th race, and this is just kind of one of these races where I think I'll go through this horse by horse, and I'll kind of start with the winner and going backwards. Where there was some subtle trouble going on, and some horses in there that just didn't run very well, but some factors in play, and that could see a change next time out. But we'll kind of go through it. So the winner of the race, number 13, My Sixth Sense, really dominant effort, was up close to the pace, outside horses, took over the lead, and then just kind of opened up on the field. Rest of the field was just kind of trying to tread water to hold position, and then some of those horses that were trying to make an impact were pretty far off the pace, trying to move up. One of those horses, the second place finisher, You Can Thank Me Later. Now, this is one of 4 horses in the field that had actually 5 horses in the field, but 4 kind of in that center part of the gate that had some trouble at the start, that kind of bumped around and caused some horses to lose position. And so him being one of those horses, and you can kind of see at that first call how far back he is, and then moving up late, obviously a distant second. But that trouble start playing a factor and being able to make up ground because the pace was honest. The number 1 determinant, this effort was a fine effort for him. It's hard to see kind of upside at this allowance level. In order for him to win, he'd have to catch probably a softer field than what he caught here. And again, keeping in mind a lot of horses that didn't have a chance to run. So sort of an even effort for third. Something to keep in mind when you go forward and you're looking for these horses out of these races to improve, regress, or stay the same. He's going to kind of stay the same, and whether that's good enough to win in the level that he's at, we shall see. New Mexico, one of those horses that was just kind of doing their best to hang on. He was forwardly placed, driven out of the gate, pressed by the eventual winner, and then just doing his best to kind of hold the blanket for place. Again, pace a little bit fast, but kind of hard to see. Again, probably sort of similar to Determinant as far as field strength. And then the same for Parade Field, actually kind of a good effort. He had some trouble at the start, but was not kind of impacted with those other horses we'll kind of touch on. And then did an inside-out trip, moved up for minors. This allowance level can be pretty tough on these horses, and that's just something to keep in mind. Determinant in Mexico Parade Field. Number 12, Botero. Wide up close to the pace, another horse that drew outside, was forwardly placed early and just, kind of unable to hold position, sort of fading through the pack. All right, New Colossus. So this is where things kind of start getting a little bit tricky. I would almost an excuse on this horse. And if you want to draw a line through it, I couldn't blame anybody because he just was unable to get the trip, was just wide throughout, trying to move, improve position, poor timing making that move, and just overall, just nothing going right with the ground loss, the timing of the trip. So again, he's kind of took some money in there, just shy of 7-1 in that field. Kind of worth keeping a watch because there's definitely improvement there. Number 2, Honoring Major, might have needed the race, might need a little bit of class relief, but overall, just he wasn't really asked. We give this keyword no push, and it's just kind of when you see the rider just not really, kind of riding to win. So sometimes that's a sign they're giving the horse a race, and that's something I'd kind of look for here. All right, Shining Through, one of those horses that was involved with the rough start, took him out of position early, and then he just kind of lost position going the first turn. I would have liked to have seen more from him. But there was that issue there. And the same thing for Street to Indy. Some people kind of like this horse going into the race. And I think they're still upset off this. Again, it's another horse that I'm just not quite sure he's at this allowance level, but had that rough start. And then also some trouble kind of heading into the first turn and dropped way back. And some passive riding, showed a little bit of move in spots, but kind of overall not an ideal trip there. And same for King Causeway, 4.5-1, I believe. Yes, second choice in the field. I wouldn't really give this one an excuse trip, but this definitely wasn't a good trip. He got shuffled out of position going into the first turn, had to kind of drop wide, and then from there it was just sort of out of the race, and the rider ultimately wrapping up on him. Incorrigible, again, took some contact at the start. He was used for position and just unable to keep up. Declan Cannon sort of easing up on there. So I think that's a race. If you want to go back, you could probably watch it. I think I watched the race. I watched it live, watched the replay, watched the head on. I think I watched it again after that, and then I put a note and I rewatched it again this morning. So I've watched this race a few times. There's just sort of a lot going on. You can kind of pick through it with a fine-tooth comb and make some notes, because again, the reason we take notes is what to do with this stuff next time. And I think there's going to be some changes coming out of this race. All right, so we'll move on. The other race I want to touch on, and I'm sorry, I know I'm skipping a lot of races. So if there's any of these races that come up that you had a question on, or liked a horse or didn't like a horse, whatever, you can send a message. This says there's a live chat, so you can obviously jump in there, but on Twitter as well. Okay, so race 7, and this is sort of similar. We'll go through on a horse by horse. The reason I wanted to do that and do this race in particular is because this being a restricted 3-year-old only race, a higher allowance type condition. So these are horses that are going to try to, obviously take their shot in stakes company. We're probably going to see them there. And that's, no doubt with the winner, Wells Bayou. Big effort for this horse, and that he had a lot of upside coming into the race off kind of a sneaky trip over at Churchill Downs. He took pressure from right from the start, kind of pulled away from his rival heading into the turn, and then just under a good ride kept that advantage late. Overall, you can't really knock this effort. It was just he did what he had to do. You have to look at it as far as upside. I think it's a positive that he was able to take pressure and stay on. Probably going to have to move forward as if they do move up to stakes company. So that's something to kind of look at. The second place finisher was a stablemate, something natural, and just not quite on the same level. And these horses have raced against each other. This is twice now because they're both coming out of the same race. Brad Cox, the trainer of both these horses, and I think he's kind of a grinder. He stays on, but just doesn't really have that that kind of kick or what you want to see from these horses as they're developing. So we'll see. He's kind of one of those horses that can maybe stick around for a minor, but he's got to really sort of step up if he wants to move forward. The third place finisher, Life on the Road. Now this horse is worth a watch. I thought this was a better than looked effort, better than looked third place finish. Showed a lot of run from off the pace, and interesting enough, they changed the tactics on this horse. And going back, I'm going to kind of clear out these filters. Going to talk about this horse just from kind of an overall progression from race to race. He entered a stakes race in his second career start. I'm going off memory while this page is loading. In the Breeders' Futurity, and he won. He broke his maiden on debut over at Ellis Park, and he won forwardly placed, but I kind of thought at the time he's a horse that doesn't seem like he needs the lead. And when he went into the Breeders' Futurity, they rode a little bit forwardly placed, and I don't know if it was just kind of too much too soon. Had a big class test, different track. Obviously wasn't given a whole lot of respect at a nice 69-1 odds. Kind of recovered out of that race, moved forward in his next start over at Churchill Downs. Sort of an even effort, but the pace scenario wasn't that ideal. I thought it was kind of a good effort. Sort of overall showed that there was a move forward from the Breeders' Futurity. Had a little bit of a break before he came back on December 31st over at Turfway Park. I think that was kind of running at Turfway Park. Maybe they're thinking we have the spiral or the stakes or whatever it's called nowadays. So maybe getting a spin there, maybe that was the idea, but it kind of just seemed like a race that he needed off the bench. And then this race here, when I talk about they changed the tactics, is they took this horse back off the pace and they made a run. And I like that style for this horse. I think that's they now know they kind of have that option, and I think there's a move forward there. And he's an interesting horse, going forward. And as we talk about these stakes races, gets a little bit fuzzy after that. I mean, there really wasn't much, with Big Man Bob, a wide trip, but overall, just kind of not enough to see him, taking a big step forward. Play the wild card. He was a second choice in this race. And, I know his horse, he broke his maiden first time out. This was his second start here. He broke his maiden over at Woodbine. When he broke his maiden at Woodbine, it was a good effort for him. But there's a note on there that his rider, Justin Stein, just had a big day. So I don't know how much that impacted him, but I thought going into this race, he was overbet off that one race and needed to show a little bit more, and didn't really, no real excuse here. He kind of chase covered up behind the pace setters and then just faded. So we've got to see more from him. He's got to kind of show that first start over at Woodbine wasn't a one-off. Jersey Cattail, this horse, he has some run. I mean, just kind of like straight up, but he's sort of his own worst enemy. And I saw this when going back and watching his races. He's really quirky, and he showed that here. He broke out. He was wide early. He was just kind of he bore out in the first turn. He seemed like he'd be pulled up out of the race. Then he kind of showed a little bit of a move in the race and like some interest. So I don't know. I don't know if this is like an equipment thing or this horse just is kind of a bit of a nutcase and needs more work. There's some run there. They've got to kind of find the right spot, and obviously he's got to figure out how to work through those quirks. Nothing really. Shackelford's Joy. I just visually, I don't know if he's on this level. Might need softer. Violator, not the most ideal trip. Moved early, moved wide. This is another horse. We talk about warm-ups. He was a warm-up horse. I'm not, I don't like that at all. I think horses underperform when they do that. Self-taught, the horse that dueled. Maybe I missed him when we were talking about this. So I'll go back. Sorry. Self-taught finished fourth. He was driven out of the gate and into a duel with Wells Bayou. He was another horse that warmed up. I mean, these horses, when they warm up, they underperform most of the time. They can win, but it really takes something out of them to warm up. So I don't know if that's a public service announcement to riders and trainers out there, but it's just not successful. And then TC's Image, a little bit overmatched, was coming off the layoff, but probably needs a softer spot to kind of get some confidence despite being a little bit of traffic there. All right. I think that's it. Those are the two races I wanted to touch on. I know it kind of got a little in the weeds, but I think there's some stuff that was worth talking about. We had a cameo from Frost. So got a couple days off at Oaklawn Park. We'll be back on Friday. Again, kind of keep this series up. We'll do Saturday, Sunday, and then Monday again. Thank you all for watching. Again, check out all the good stuff throughout the week. OpticsEQ.com, Brisnet.com. And of course, follow on Twitter. All right, have a good week.